September 11th, 2006. This is Diehard Gamer Radio, episode 14.
You are listening to Diehard Gamer Radio, the source for off-mainstream video game news and topics. Now your hosts, Murdock, Brian, and John.
All right, well, welcome back to Diehard Gamer Radio. I am one of your hosts, Murdock, and as always, I have John, Brian, and Steve.
There may not actually be anyone else here. I think it's all in his head.
There is only one Diehard Gamer Radio.
Yes.
Same guy.
Yes.
Same guy.
Mm-hmm.
Same guy.
Okay.
You are that man.
So we're going to start with our first news bit. The Tokyo Game Show is September 22nd through the 24th, and we're expecting a lot of great things from this.
Well, I think all we're going to really expect is a bunch of posts saying, is this the new E3?
Not only that, but
Nintendo
Nintendo's going to be there.
Before the E3.
It'd be a better E3 if it was in English.
It was the original E3. It's just the one that's overseas.
So would it be okay if they dubbed it?
Subtitling would be cool.
You also have to remember that the last 2 days of the Tokyo Game Show are open to the public.
Are the booth babes still there the last 2 days, or do they go home?
Actually, booth babes are very prevalent at the TGS.
Oh, yeah. Say hello to the Namco girls.
What do the booth babes do after the convention is over? Do they just
sell their panties in vending machines?
Yeah, take them off, put them in a plastic baggie, fill up the machine, wait for the next show. Wash,
That's probably not too far from the truth.
They go back to the back rooms of the electronics district.
Wonder if they ever get pissed off when they actually wash a pair of their panties.
Crap! By accident? Yeah.
I could have made money off those.
So, we'll be having a TGS report here on our next podcast on the 25th, but there's already been a slew of announcements that's come out regarding what titles are going to be shown at TGS.
Not to mention Nintendo making a big showing.
Well,
yeah.
You know, both Sony and Nintendo are going to be there full force, because
Microsoft,
we're like
not so
coming
much.
out with stuff.
Yeah, but Nintendo's not known for going to TGS, so this is even more important.
Yeah, they're usually like Space World. But
Sony's going to stay home, and they're going to like be hurriedly putting circuit boards together so they can have some more units.
Sony couldn't make it. They got chicken pox. They
got those little butane soldering irons that are all lined up in a lunchroom somewhere, hurriedly putting together.
They got a bunch of smoking
PCBs.
monkeys back there going, work faster.
so, which brings us into our next news bit. Currently, and this is only rumor, but I'm sure it's probably true, only 400,000 PS3s for the U.S. launch due to a shortage of the blue laser diodes.
And none for Europe. So much for that world release.
I thought the rumor was just about the blue laser diodes. I thought Sony had confirmed their shipping numbers.
Well,
they kept changing their shipping numbers. It's like 600,000 now.
Yeah, last week they
got
the 400,000 came out, and then like that day there was another article on, or another post or something on either ours or Slashdot that said, no, we meant 1 million. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, obviously you've gone over the hump there.
Even Ken Kutaragi admitted on Kotaku that, yeah, we're a little behind, and we're not really where we'd like to be. And they're like, ooh, what is this with truth we like?
Actually,
give us
they
more.
Were still ripping him a new asshole.
Oh, yeah, but at least
he just needs to stay home and hide under the blankets at this point.
They're going to put a
they need to have the entire
laser in there.
The entire executive management of Sony really just needs to shut up until the release, because really they're not helping anything.
Here's an idea: why don't they hire a PR person?
Yeah, last time
the PR person was still sticking his foot in his mouth.
Well, yeah,
but it's his job to do it. We don't need the head of the company going out weekly and getting his ass ripped.
The last time we had the PR people doing anything, we got the black and white PSP.
Yeah.
So really, it seems like just
pissing off people the world over.
It's the
pissing off ignorant Americans.
Pissing off
the
Americans.
Europeans obviously weren't. Didn't really have a problem with it. It was just some dumb American.
Asked and answered.
Or maybe some too smart American.
Or something. Who knows?
Well,
tree huggers.
Some damn imperialist American forcing their opinions on the rest of the world.
Screw you, hippie!
How come I never get to do that? I mean, like, the rest of the world has never rebelled against me for imposing my opinion. Well, it seems to be like the birthright of Americans to do such things, and I never get to.
Maybe if you were white.
Maybe you just need a blog.
I do need a blog.
Yeah.
I'm in your blogs oppressing your opinions.
So our next news bit is the European PS3 launch delayed till 2007.
Which goes back to our previous news bit. Where'd all our PS3s go? Well, we had to leave them overseas.
They're in America where they belong.
Yeah.
Not with those dirty Europeans. See, I'm getting good at
We've got to please those whiny Americans before we come to you, which is just satisfied with whatever you get.
Americans have more money than you.
And we can tell how important we are because we're even screwing over the Japanese to get our PS3. So
Yeah.
obviously we rock.
In more ways than one.
But that's okay. I guess you'll have to wait for 2007 for their soccer simulations.
Soccer.
It's football!
Foosball moms. I saw that great thing on, it was on ours they called, they translated soccer moms as Fußball Mutters.
Which is also a great name for a band.
Soccer moms in any language.
Sounds
doesn't
more
make
like
it
a
good
heavy
band.
metal German band. Fußball Mutters. Diehard.
Fußball machen would have to be. That'd just be soccer makers.
Ich bin ein Fußballmutters.
Yeah, you need to have an umlaut and like that funny looking B thing, that double S.
Oh, the S at, yes.
I wonder what MILF would be in German.
MILF.
So next topic, and this was just recently announced. The PSP camera and GPS receiver announced for November and December, and it's the PSP camera plugs it to the top of the PSP. I'm not sure of the megapixels on it, and then there's a GPS receiver as well. That's like this huge, big gravestone-looking thing that
Is
sticks
there
out of the
anybody
top of
in
it.
Japan that doesn't already have like 3 cameras?
And a GPS in their car.
Well, are you talking about the legitimate camera users or the ones that do upskirt photos with cameras on their phones, on
Either
their
or.
shoes?
Well, they have to buy a phone for both.
Yeah, true. So,
I'm sure it's like, I take pictures of my kids, and then at night I walk out and I go, click, click, click.
Oh, look at my phone's on the floor. Imagine that.
yes, you can visit his.
Wonder how that got there.
You can visit his blog at shibuyaupskirt.co.jp. So
I'm scared.
it's probably a real URL.
it's like very likely to be.
Well, so is this going to be like an iToy kind of camera or like a worthless kind of camera?
Well, both. The only screenshots I've seen of the cameras from the Magic Box, and all they have is just a picture of the camera. So as far as actual
We have no idea.
specs or what the quality
Does it
is,
like
Well, you
roll
Are you going
can't
to be able to use
back
both
or
at the same
top?
time?
Does it face
No.
forward or back?
It actually revolves.
it rotates.
Yeah, it rotates right.
It would be like
I saw
the ultimate
pictures of
like
it.
capture the flag
I
thing.
saw pictures of you seeing the picture on the PSP of what you were looking at.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was decent quality, but I don't know. I mean, that was just
It
what
just
we
seems
saw in
kinda
still
pointless.
motion on
I've
the
heard
PSP.
it's pretty low megapixel, so it's probably going to be for gaming stuff. I mean, they've already shown us with the iToy that they can do fun game things with it, so...
Hey, make your own backgrounds with your PSP camera. Whatever.
Yeah,
This is PSP. I can see the pixels.
yeah. So next,
Because I've seen quite a few PSPs in my day.
so our next news bit is Wii is to have 6 million systems worldwide for launch, and that was confirmed through Nintendo of America's CEO, is that they're planning on having 6 million systems available at launch.
Well,
you
they don't
know,
have to
when
worry
you make-
about blue diodes, so that's probably a potential.
When you make your console out of like leftover toaster parts, it's pretty easy.
Oh, whatever. Hey, at least they'll have systems.
It's Nintendo and Legos collaboration. The Wii.
So what do you have against the Wii anyway?
Well,
Other than its size.
He's counterculture. He's against the man.
well, that's part of it. I mean, there's just way too much exuberant enthusiasm for something that hasn't proven it has any good ideas yet.
Well, that's for
That's
all
because
the
it's
system.
affordable.
Well, that's for all the system. That's for the PS3. That's for pretty
And
much all
also,
the
there's
systems.
pretty much the thing that Nintendo has come out and said, this system isn't for you. So I kind of go, screw you, hippie.
Not your system, not yours.
When did Nintendo ever say that?
When they said, we're not aiming for the traditional gamer market, we're looking to get new people with simpler, less complicated games. The Wii and the 360 are going to be in a dead heat then to be the first to bring teledildonics technology to the masses.
Still waiting for the frickin' teledildonics to the man.
Brought to you by Yoyodyne.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
our next news bit, Senko no Ronde was released in Japan.
Woot!
It's a game that pretty much everyone else in the world will not care about except probably us.
Screw you, other hippies.
But to explain it to those who are not familiar with the game, it is a /fighting game /shooter pretty much. It's about the best way I can describe it.
Oh yeah, it's a fighting shoot 'em up, shmup,
And it looks awesome.
shmup shooter.
Fight the shmup.
So has it
Shmup
actually
fighter.
released yet?
Yes, it is. You can
Fighter.
you can order it online now, but not that matters because
Is it region locked?
of course.
Yeah, it's Japanese.
There's been a couple of the Japanese 360 titles that have not been region locked. Saints Row among them.
Huh.
They keep doing that. So
Shmup fighter.
Saints Row was a Japanese title,
No, it was an American title,
but
so
it
I
wasn't.
guess-
Well, that's
but when
going
they
the other
released
way.
it over
though.
there, they released it for $40 and it's not region locked. So
I
it's
think they're just
reverse
trying to
import
grab.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like
That's really.
I doubt it's
bizarre.
going to come the other direction though. It's just too
Well,
bad.
not like
What do
those
you mean
types of
by
games do
come
well
the
in
other
Japan anyway. So
Well,
why spend the money in region locking? Just
Except there was like that fighting game that they did that wasn't region locked. I think it was one of the Capcom ones that came out, and the first shipment wasn't region locked.
Oh, that was on the Xbox.
That was
That
like,
was Street Fighter Anniversary. Yeah.
There's
That
been
was a
couple of the
mistake, though.
360
That was
titles,
a total
though.
mistake.
Apparently, with the 360, it is up to the developer to decide whether or not I want to enable region locking. So there has been games that have and games that have not.
it'd be kind of interesting to see if there's a list online
Yeah.
of
Oh,
what
I'm
games
sure
are.
there
Yeah.
is.
I've never found a list. It's always been, checking the forums and, releases, and some dude goes, is it region locked? And then 3 days later, somebody goes, yes or no.
That's kind of a list.
Yeah.
That's just like a really distributed list.
Well, you need to go take a forum or go put your own thread and just go through the prior threads and find
Sounds
it.
like a
and make
job for
list.
Pearl.
So our last news bit, and John gave me this news bit for whatever reason.
Make it
Tan
credit.
lines in Dead or Alive Extreme Beach 2.
Is this something we really need to discuss?
No.
All right.
We just need to watch.
Why did you bring this to my
Bouncy,
attention?
bouncy. Is this not the greatest useless feature ever to be added? I mean, who
No,
was
there's
asking,
been better useless
And
features.
leave it up to the Japanese to do just that.
Who was looking at this DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball and going, you know what this game needs?
Tan lines. Woo! Give me a beer, man.
This ruins my suspension of disbelief, however, because it's always presumed that the only reason why DOA is playable is because at some point in some time they all spend a lot of time naked out in the sun. So tan lines would really ruin my illusion there.
Yeah, you'll get over it after about 30 seconds.
I'll get over it by not playing the game, probably. But
Yeah, so
But also the new version does have independent breast physics modeling for each breast.
Roger, this news is for you.
The headlights, they move independently.
so we can't find a cure for cancer, but we can have independently jiggling boobies.
With tan lines.
I know which one's more important.
Yeah, you got me there.
Well, cancer kills the boobies.
The man has a point.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Go to Race for the Cure, October 8th. Thank you.
Only if you're...
That was a pretty fucking clever plug. That was pretty fucking slick. is what that was.
Not that will help any of the people that are listening outside of Colorado.
Hey, if I can get one more person to the race, I've done my job, man.
So next we're going to go into our game topics and discussion. And our first topic is, are strategy guides the reason why we have harder games, or are harder games the reason why we have strategy guides? My opinion is that they are purposely making games either difficult or just so vague that it's hard to get certain items, and you are almost required to buy the strategy guide just to get the full potential out of the game.
Well, is that not more... Well, I don't agree. I think maybe they want a higher amount of replay value, so they hide things, they add more to it, and they make you go through to find more things.
Yeah,
This
but-
isn't necessarily replay value, though. I mean, take a look at any of the recent Final Fantasy games. You can tell me you're supposed to be able to find all those things just walking around.
Yeah.
It's like, go
not saying
down to
it's
the bottom of the
completely
well and
Yeah.
fight these monsters for half an hour.
Pray for another 30 minutes to this god, and then it magically appears. Well, then you got to go halfway across the map to find it.
Yeah. So well, let's start with, are the strategy guides the reason why we have harder games? I mean, from what I realized in my time playing games, games have ranged in difficulty. Some are very easy, some are hard. I don't think difficulty has really changed much.
Well, while this is true, you have to keep in mind that the paradigms of making things hard, you can't like just make something quasi-difficult and it'll be hard for gamers. It's like, how hard is Super Mario Brothers for you now?
Well, that's true.
And how hard was it back when you first played it?
So maybe they're angling towards modern-day gamers that
Well,
require
I mean,
more
there's-
stimuli.
Not even that. I mean, the basic skills for gaming are pretty much omnipresent in people that play games on a regular
Yeah.
basis now. It's
They've
like
evolved so
you don't
far
have to
that-
learn how to be a platformer anymore. It's something
Yeah.
you've pretty much learned how to do from the very first time you
And some
played
of us are
something,
having
you know?
gamers of our own, and
Yeah.
platformers out the chute.
What do you have people who are playing platformers from the age of 2?
Yeah.
You know, it's not really a challenge just to make a platformer that has weird jumps. You have to have something else going on.
Yeah, now they have to fuck up the controls and give you a bad camera.
Yeah.
And put it in a cell phone.
Yeah, but, you know, you can look at it butts or something.
Yeah. So, but I mean, our strategy guides, I mean,
I don't know which caused which, but there's got to be
probably the
some of
chicken
the
and
things
the
that
egg
they're
right
putting into games now that are just to add features into the strategy guides. Because some of that stuff is just impossible. I mean,
Maybe it kind of renews interest in the fans or the core base of fans later down the road and gets them to play it again, or drums
But-
up interest just in general.
but if I'm not mistaken, in earlier games, I mean, there was at least some clue as to, hey, there's this item that you might want to get at some point in the near future because it might aid you in whatever it is that you want to do.
Something that served a purpose.
Yeah, but in the games now, it's like you would have no idea that these things would even exist without the strategy guide.
And how many of these things are even useful? Some of them are
Depends
just
on the
collectible items that have no purpose.
Yeah, but a lot of people really like being completist about these games and want to
Yeah.
have all those things.
So they're really going after the OCD crowd then, huh?
makes sense because they're probably the ones that buy the strategy guides
Well,
too.
that's true, and there's probably a greater prevalence of OCD amongst hardcore gamers than anybody else.
Hey, we're
Yeah.
talking another $15 to $20 for a strategy guide.
No,
There's
yeah,
probably
try
a
20
higher
to
profit
25.
margin.
Yeah, some of them are getting
Yeah.
huge.
Well,
Those
you
are-
already made the game. You know where everything is. You didn't have to figure it out. You just made a screenshot of it and wrote up something on it. So.
Or
But
I've
there's a
sold
higher
it to
profit
Brady
margin on the
Games or-
strategy guides than on the games too.
Oh yeah. I mean, whenever we would sell stuff at EB, they were always like, "You freaking sell that with a strategy guide, motherfucker."
Yeah.
So
Hey,
That
the
was the
Brady
same with
Games
mine.
ones are always the shit, though. I love Brady Games. Same with Game Fan when they were putting them out way back in the day. Those
They're
are
pretty
just
shiny
awesome.
these days. Now though, they even have like the limited edition collector's strategy guides. though.
That comes with a tin version from
Yeah.
the Xbox.
because my
Yeah.
strategy guide really, really needs a foil cover.
Yeah, it's,
It wasn't shiny enough before.
yeah, this
We
strategy
glossed
guide,
it on metal.
we spell checked it, so it's limited.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the $60 version that actually has a metal end on either side, and it's like just bolted
It's
together.
like a binder. It's
Yeah.
like,
The one with gold gilt on the page.
yeah, you're
It's
talking
gonna
about
be like
the
Half-Life
World of
3 or
Warcraft
something.
one.
It's done by Gregorian monks and has a lubrications at the beginning of every section.
Yeah. So as far as
Illustrated boobies.
strategy guides, we don't think that we're seeing all these hard games just simply because, hey, we're coming out with a strategy guide for like every single game out there.
Well, and also it's because I think too some of the really truly hard games that we've seen recently, like say Devil May Cry 3 or Ninja Gaiden or something, the strategy guides don't actually help with those. So, and it seems like, I mean, maybe they do, but still, there's so much skill required just to play the game.
Yeah, that's true. The strategy guides cannot teach you how to play a game. They can just tell you where everything is.
You need to
It
kill
seems
5
like a
guys
big
in a row,
hit book
all
now or
surrounding you. How you get to that?
that's
Well,
that's a good point there because, I mean, okay, so I have to play Final Fantasy for X number of hours to win it. But, I might be able to play it
Anybody
more
has
by,
X hours.
getting this thing here. Yeah, exactly. Everybody has X hours to play it. Meanwhile, you're playing like, I don't know. I'm outdated. You're playing freaking Star Fox or something. Okay, you better learn how to play that game. I don't care if the
Yeah.
little strategy guide tells you, where everything is. You still got to keep from getting blown up.
yep.
You
gotta
know,
learn how to
and that's
fly.
not going to get, page 17 doesn't show you how to be a better pilot. It just shows you how to do a barrel roll,
Yeah, yeah, and
Well, it's the same in like Mario Kart to learn how to do the super burst off the skid, You had to learn physically how to push one direction, slide the other, and then, tap it 3 times and get your your orange marks or your wheels to go orange so you could burst out.
It
Yeah,
seems
but
like some of that
takes
stuff
skill.
though, is like they just reprint the manual because nobody bothers
Yeah.
to read that.
Well, that would
wow.
be Game
Yeah.
Pro. But well, I mean, Brian, you and I can relate. Like, for example, if we saw strategy guides for fighting games, and they'll tell you like all the moves and everything, but the skill and the dexterity it took to pull off some of these moves,
And the more
were just
complicated,
insane.
and the more complicated ones actually had combos too. They'd recommend.
Yeah,
or
and no one
multiple hits
could
or
like
something.
sit through and memorize all those combos.
especially if you're talking something like Fatal Fury or, Fatal Fury or Art of Fighting are the two that come to mind. They had incredible hard super moves that were back forward, half circle back forward, then up back, and it was just like, man, if you could even get that thing off, let alone get it off smoothly.
I think I prefer the
Howard.
Soul Calibur,
Yeah.
Soul Blade version where you just hit start and it tells you all your moves.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
Well, no,
that's like a strategy guide.
It
though.
didn't help
doesn't
with
tell
the
you
old
how-
games, though.
Yeah,
I mean, even when those came out on a port, they showed
Yeah, but I
you the
didn't have
move,
to
but
pay
you
anything
still
extra.
had to do it. You had to be able to physically do it.
Yeah, I didn't have
Although
to pay
the
extra to
in-game
get it
ones are
done.
even better
Well,
though, because they'll show you how to do it at least.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's a very
Get the
interesting
timing.
point. The American version of the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology by Capcom, in the Japanese version of the game, you can just pause the menu, go straight to the move list, and find everything that's there. But in the American version, they actually removed the move list and came up with a strategy guide on top of that. So
You bastards. You
And the
evil
Evidence
bastards.
mounts.
yeah, and I was reading on some of the forums, and they're like, "Well, yeah, they removed it," and I'm like, "Well, why? Oh, okay, that's why they removed it."
I swear, I see a light bulb above your head, oh boy.
I mean, it wouldn't make a big deal for me because I've played the game like
You already know all the moves.
pretty much.
Well, that and the Japanese are guaranteed to buy these books just for the art value alone.
Yeah, but
Americans,
just the simple fact they don't even give you like, oh, by the way, these are the differences between the style. Something that would be covered in the
Yeah.
instruction booklet, and you have to actually go outside of the
that
game
sounds like a
documentation
cheeseball
itself.
maneuver to me to get you to
to
buy a guide.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
yeah.
Thank you, Capcom of America.
Game facts.
Oh, bastards.
One
Yeah.
of the things that really bothers me about strategy guides today, too, is I remember, way back in the day, when you could see at strategy guides, they were actually fun. They added some value to it. Like, I've still got my original Starflight hint guide game from, got to be more than 15 years old now. But the thing was written as a piece of fiction. There's actually this interesting story that went along with it, expanded the universe, and still managed to have a hint with it. Or you remember the old Sierra Online hint guides for all of the adventure games with the invisible ink and the marker?
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing I was saying too. It shows a difference in philosophy for the game guide makers. On one hand, they assumed that with the invisible things or with the little red screens where it would show up if you put
like
a little
the
piece of plastic on it.
Transformers decoder, yeah.
It's presumed by that sort of strategy presumes that you want to try and get through the game on your own, but you need help, and you don't want to accidentally see the other hints. Versus this where, hey, here's a 78-page guide on how to find shit that you don't need.
It's not just a guide. It's like step by step of what you
Oh yeah,
do in
I
this
mean,
level.
strategy guides nowadays are okay. You're obviously an idiot, so we're going to tell you how to play the game from start to finish.
All you need is a blow-up dummy that you can give the controller to that follows the rules, and it just... it's your
Yeah,
I'd buy
autopilot.
that strategy guide.
Well, it's probably more a PC game, but...
Hey, there's
That would
there's
be a flight
USB.
sim that was driven by a blow-up doll, right?
yeah, it'd be airplane.
There's USB controllers on the systems now.
But I mean,
Hook up an accessory.
it depends on the game, though. Like for example,
Artificial girl.
say some of the platform games, like your Metroids, Castlevanias. You don't really need a strategy guide for those games because with a little exploring, you can pretty much find your way, and you are dealing with a limited environment. So
Although there's
It's
lots
somewhat
of hidden
linear.
stuff, though.
yeah, but I mean,
And isn't there 100 souls or something in the latest Castlevania or something? Some huge number, and they're hidden all over the
it's
place.
every
Oh,
creature
yeah,
has
yeah.
Yeah.
There's certain things you gotta do, which, you have to go to the guides for, but for the most part, you can figure most of it out.
Or use the cheap ass version, go to GameFAQs, and oh hey, that's how I do it.
Yeah, GameFAQs rules.
But the last point on this is are harder games the reason we have strategy guides? Like I said, I don't think the games themselves are getting any
It sounds
harder.
like we're going for the more money. Either
Yeah,
that
I
or
think it's
people
just-
are dumber and want their games to be
They're more
easy.
harder in the sense that they're putting in crap that has nothing to do with the game.
They're just putting stuff as a perceived, to add perceived
Well,
value when there's really no reason to
From
have
an
it there.
OCD standpoint, they're harder because it's harder to be completely 100% done with everything you could possibly ever find in doing the game. But if you're just trying to beat the game, it's probably not any harder.
So
Yeah.
maybe the strategy guides are just like their way to offer an alternative, like easy difficulty level for people who don't want to choose easy.
Perhaps.
Or they could just, practice and become better gamers.
Nah.
Well, that sounds kind of like work, which honestly does not sound like the point of gaming.
Yeah,
Well.
fat, lazy Americans.
So our next topic, did Microsoft drop the ball on backwards compatibility on the Xbox 360?
Drop the ball. They threw the game. What are you talking about?
They were running to the goal. Oh, they dropped it. So sports analogies aside.
He hit the tool player.
Yeah. So
Oh, we could go with sports analogies, since I think most of those aren't on the backwards compatibility list either.
actually, I think there is a reason for that, and I think what it is the reason that a lot of the sports games don't tend to be backward compatible is because Microsoft wants you to concentrate on the newest incarnations of the game, and that's where they want you to spend the money. If they made the older games backward compatible, you can get these cheaper, and it's like, well, why bother getting the new version?
Not only that, but there's one out every
Why
year.
would you buy a
guaranteed.
new version anyway?
Sometimes two
I
different
mean, if
companies.
that's
Well, yeah,
the
but-
reason people buy the new ones is to get the new rosters and get the new players
Yeah,
and crap like that.
But as we're not sports
see the
gamers,
new
but
upgrade.
I can see where EA would say, well, we don't want these backward compatible because you can buy the last year's version for
Pennies
$12,
on the
$15
dollar.
yeah, well,
and if we made it backward
Crazy
compatible, it's
days,
like, well, what's the
fire
point?
sale.
But that's
Well-
only one genre, though.
true. But my answer to that is make a better freaking game every year, and maybe people will buy it anyway.
So,
The only thing they
EA
really
doesn't have to
upgrade
do that
is-
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. That's just what I'm
The
saying.
only thing they ever upgrade is just the roster and pretty much the graphics to
No,
some
they
If
extent.
you
keep
did
adding
that.
new features.
Well,
to
they
it.
add a few new features, but who the hell wants to run the whole team from the CEO position? I mean, that's getting a
well,
little crazy.
actually,
That's like
it's
the
interesting.
RPG.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned that because when EA got exclusive rights to all the NFL stuff, when the new NFLs came out, when they got exclusivity rights, they removed a lot of stuff because they figure, well, there's no competition. Why do we need to put all this effort in adding all this shit that no one's going to compete with us anyway? So fuck it.
Thank you again, lazy American companies.
Well, I think that's just EA. I think it's EA
yeah.
just being
You'd
assholes.
think it'd
Yeah,
be
you
even
suck.
harder to actually remove features from something. I mean,
Well, maybe they just didn't get around to finishing them. They got
I
to
doubt
recoup
that.
millions of dollars in licensing costs somehow.
Yeah.
well, I have a hard time believing that that EA writes code that's so modular that they can just take out features and not affect the rest of the code base.
Yeah, EA sucks. They really do. They
Yeah.
suck hard. They suck
donkey
long
balls.
and they suck hard.
Yeah, well, you won't be saying that when the next Burnout comes out.
Oh, I don't know.
I
This
said
last
it when
one
the
was
last one
pretty
came
shitty.
out.
Yeah.
This last one was pretty fucked up. Why did they just stick with the original formula? It's like the fighting syndrome, The first one was a test. The second fighter's the masterpiece. The third is just the second one with all this new shit nobody
Except
gives a
3
crap
was way
about.
better than 2.
3 was way better than 2, yeah.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think 2 is my favorite, but that's just... I'm saying 2 in general. Samurai Showdown 2, Fatal Fury 2,
Well,
Mortal
but
Kombat 2. I mean...
Burnout
we're
3
talking about
was
Burnout.
by far
Oh,
better
no, I'm
than
talking
2.
about fighters in general. It's the
no.
fighter syndrome for Burnout, because Burnout 3 was literally the first one, in my opinion. It was the first one of its type, and then this...
Yeah. So,
Oh.
moving...
Well,
There's-
that
there's-
is true that Burnout 3 was the first one that most people played, but there were in fact
It's
2 games
it's
before.
very
Yeah, but
interesting.
they're
the Burnout
nowhere
ones.
near the same as 3.
Well,
Yeah.
there's actually a very interesting. It's pretty much it's pretty interesting to see the evolution that led up to Burnout 3. Because
quite
you
a
can
jump from
definitely
2 to
see
3. You can
well, yeah,
see
but you
EA's
can see
involvement.
How you can see how they were going for a game, and they kind of did 1, and they're like going, then they did 2, and you're like, and then you get 3, and you're like, yeah.
Except
That's what
3
I
was when they got
looking
an
for.
infusion from EA, so they had
No,
the
no,
money.
they
Help
didn't
with
get
the
bought until
production
after 3.
value. No, they did get bought right before that.
I thought they got well,
No,
but
there's the EA challenge everything, and there's the soundtrack thing.
but they did most of the coding before EA bought them.
I'm sure that they, got some additional resources and they were able to, polish it more than
Upgrade.
they would have been otherwise. But, I mean,
You got
also,
a 2
can
to
see
3
the
is a
same kind of
huge jump.
progression. I mean, if you go all the way from Burnout 1 to 4, you then have Burnout 1, which is like starting as a pretty traditional racing game that happens to have some traffic. And Burnout 4, that's all about fighting, hitting cars and being all this over-the-top destruction. And it's like Burnout 3 was kind of like the sweet spot between those, but you can see this constant progression all the way from 4 games, just kind of
but
going
2 to
towards
3
that
was a
model.
huge jump, though.
Well, it was on a
Really?
totally
Like
different
evolution.
system, though, too.
Yeah.
But
Burnout,
That's why I
Burnout
say-
2 and 3 are pretty much the same gameplay-wise. The real difference between them is just that you get the opportunity to use boost anywhere, which is not like a huge change to the gameplay system.
I'm
but
looking at
makes it a whole
graphics, and I'm
lot
looking
more
at all
Yeah.
the...
But back on topic, did Microsoft drop
Actually, it's
the ball?
on topic
Burnout.
because Burnout 3 just got
backwards
on the
compatible.
just like last week.
Now, but I said,
finally got around
I bet
to
you
it,
anything
yeah.
that's because, Burnout 4 was out. They wanted to make sure that they got their money on it before they went ahead and
Yeah,
made
but Burnout 3
available.
also has a huge following on live.
I don't know that the independent companies have that much control over the backwards compatibility list, though. I mean, every
Probably
time
not.
Microsoft talks about it, it sounds like it's purely driven by technical reasons. And it's like,
Well,
this is the stuff we
technical
could
and
get
monetary reasons, I'm sure.
working. And it's like the whole thing about Barbie Horse Adventures is the reason we got that is because it was a RenderMan game. And it's like they got RenderMan working pretty early on.
Well, I think also a reason why a lot of these crap games just tend to be made backward compatible a lot faster than some of these more high profile games is the fact that a lot of these crap-tastic games didn't use a lot of the Xbox's power to begin with and a lot of its processor power. So to make it backward compatible on the Xbox 360, not that hard because they figured, well, we'll just use the base stats. We won't push the limitations of the system. So to make it backward compatible, real easy.
It's a matter of
I
changing
don't
a few
think it was
codes
that
here
at
and
all.
there.
I think it was because, to use that specific example of Barbie Horse Adventures, it was because it used the same engine as GTA. They got GTA working, they go looking around, and wow, this other game happens to work now, too.
Was that the only other game that happened to work on that? That makes me wonder.
But my understanding of the backward compatibility on the Xbox, and I could be wrong, but my understanding was at the time of the development of the Xbox 360, they just decided, like at the very last minute, oh yeah, by the way, let's make it backward compatible.
I understand
and
it
never
was something like
planned
6
it at
months
all.
before release that they decided they were going to do.
Well, that's last minute in video game
Oh,
terms.
yeah, that's hella last minute.
Just
It's like we've designed all the hardware and we're pretty much just working in marketing now. And oh, by the way, let's make it backwards.
We got to go in and touch this chip and flip something on it. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and then a lot of the really great games have not been backward compatible yet.
And even then, a lot of the stuff that they have made backwards compatible doesn't seem to work that well, which is why they need to keep updating a lot of it and everything.
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing with every console. Where as you get later and later in the lifetime of the console, you start getting devs who start using tricks that really aren't canonical tricks. But if you make a game that's really popular and you want to actually have it backward compatible, it's going to take a long time to retcon that trick that guy is using with his assembler to work with your
How much
Especially
does
when you've got
the
things like you've got an NVIDIA graphics card in the Xbox, so now we basically need to rewrite your graphics pipeline to work with the new 360
I don't know if this makes it.
pipeline.
I don't know if this makes an issue or a difference in it, but how many of these games that are backwards compatible are also compatible with live? I'd be curious to see how many of them.
Halo and Halo 2 were the must-haves on the compatibility list.
But I mean, if you
Halo
go back
2
and
was
look at
all
all
about
of them,
the
how
live.
many of them worked on live? I kind of wonder if that's a factor in it at all either.
Where they're trying to get the more popular multiplayer stuff out there.
Well, that would make sense.
I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at their sales numbers and these are the 10 games we have to have on our backwards compatibility list.
Yeah.
Well, also Microsoft seems to be having real problems with the backward compatibility thing, but Sony and Nintendo never really had too many problems with backward compatibility, like with the Game Boy Advance or the PlayStation 2. I mean, backward compatibility.
Well, both of those were solved by hardware, though.
Yeah.
Both of those systems basically had the previous systems in their hardware.
It was small enough they could just incorporate it in.
Well, I mean, it's like with the GBA, you've got a chip that's like a superset of the old chip, so it just runs the old code still.
Yeah.
Or you've got like the PS2, where the PS1 is like the I/O controller on the board. Like, oh, okay.
So why didn't Microsoft do that? Or
Because somebody dropped the ball in the design phase.
And also because, they're not going to stick another, pay licensing to Intel and NVIDIA to be able to license their IP to do it all in hardware, probably.
Thus the problem with using commodity hardware.
Yeah. And they don't actually own it, so they can't just toss it on. Like.
Yeah.
But, we're probably going to see, who knows what's going to happen with the PS3 backward compatibility. It could be just as bad.
It will be.
Wouldn't be surprising with all the other crap that's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Be icing on the cake, I suppose.
Yeah. And
The devil's cake.
Yeah, no HDMI cable for you.
And the only reason I think the Wii is going to get
you
it
must
right
buy
is
it
because,
separately.
it's the GameCube 1.5. So, you just bump the clock rate in your old system. How hard can it be?
Overclock the bastard.
The HDMI cable thing, I'm really like, well, yeah, if the rest of the system was pretty awesome or whatever, okay, I got to buy an extra cable, fine. But at this point, man, just do something right.
Do you have an HDMI television to hook
No,
it up
but give me one anyway, because really you're messing with my wants here.
Yeah, I do.
No, they're forcing you to drop some more dime.
Well, they are,
which is not the
They could
surprise
make
by
you,
Sony.
but they could also make you drop. They could do like they did with what system was it, where they only gave you the RGB cables, and like 90% of the installed base needed the RF adapter still, and so they made you buy the RF adapter. It was either the SNES or it was like the N64.
No, it was
that.
it was
Wasn't
the
Nintendo.
well, it was both. It was both the no. It was the
That was the N64.
no.
that did
It was
that.
the Nintendo 64 because the original Super Nintendo actually came with both. It came with the composite and the RF. The Nintendo 64 only came with the composite, and you had to buy a separate RF adapter.
Well, most people had been upgraded by that point.
Yeah.
They had better TVs, or they had a VCR
Not the
they could plug
Nintendo
in.
crowd had.
No.
The Nintendo guys were not the hardcore
And-
crowd. They're like totally still running off their RF
And-
adapter.
But Nintendo's also notorious for using the same plugins or the same cords from system to system.
Yeah,
Same way
because the
Sony
general
does.
consumer doesn't know that
Yeah,
until we tell them that.
Yeah, but also, and Steve can probably vouch for me on this, is that same thing happened when the PlayStation 2 came out, and you couldn't
was
get an RF for it at all.
Yeah, it was all third party.
Yeah, I mean,
Although it was
RFs
the same
just
thing
sold
for the
out. Like,
Dreamcast, too.
yeah, pretty much even the PlayStation's like, oh, we need an RF for it, because all it came was.
That's why you
with
go to the
the,
forums and you
sorry.
hear somebody say,
But
"Oh,
I mean,
plug it into your
it's-
VCR. It
What
works just as
forums
well."
in '94.
It's a gaming console. When have they ever included the highest quality, best possible connector in with the system? No,
Well,
they include
but
the lowest
this is-
common denominator.
But
Yeah.
I guess my viewpoint on this is that the PS2 is trying to put itself as this, or the PS3 is trying to make itself as this high-end, best of the best system.
What do they
And
do?
so
They
if they were
cut out
going to
the
leave
best part of
something
it?
out, you would leave out the lower-end cable and give you the higher-end
Yeah.
one. Because they can charge you $40 for it either way. I mean, it's like, ooh, here's the Sony brand.
Yeah, they're
It
already
works better.
They're already charging
Sponsored by
600.
Monster
So what's
Cable.
another $40?
Except the component cables already give you
Hell,
the
they
same
probably got to
quality.
deal with
I mean,
Monster
Yeah, but
Cable.
the general consumer doesn't know that.
So they should instead include something more
Yeah.
expensive.
It's like,
because
well,
the
this is
general
for when
consumer
you.
doesn't
This,
know they don't
I
need
guarantee
it.
you, if they had done it this way, this is how the marketing, the little slip of paper from EB to their employees would have gone. This they include HDMI cable. The way you sell this is they include it so that when you actually get to an HDMI TV, which you're going to have to because high definition is going to be the standard in the future anyway, you'll be able to use this. Right now, though, you're going to have to get a composite cable. I guarantee you, it would have been like that. And
Oh,
it would
yeah.
have flown totally. People
Oh,
would have
yeah.
bought them left and right. There would have been a pile in a box of 300 count of composite
Oh, yeah.
cables sitting
Oh.
right next to the PS3s and EB.
Yeah, but instead, when you get your PS3, it's going to have one of those old switch boxes that you have to screw in, and one of the
It has the
switches says
switches
television,
TV.
and the other one says computer.
Yes, exactly that. I'm pretty sure my dad's got 5 or 6 of those still.
I just find this to be a total non-issue because I figure, I buy a gaming console, I have to go and buy the right cable for my setup because, they're not going to include 3 different kinds so I can get the right thing going on.
Oh man! that
Except for
brings
the
back
fact
memories.
I've spent another $50 on cables for every one of the consoles I ever bought.
Except for the fact that they're not marketing this system to you. They're marketing to, please buy our multi-function entertainment system for your kids and for you parents because you could watch movies on them as well.
They're marketing to people that don't have HDMI television.
They're marketing to people that don't know the difference, and you're marketing to people who are going to pay $600+ for a system that they don't really need.
They're marketing to people that don't even know what HDMI stands for. So,
So, I mean, they're including cables that'll probably work with every television that, 99% of the people have and trying to hook the thing up with.
Yeah, it totally doesn't make business sense.
Yeah.
They could make another $40 off that cable.
But anyway, so we're saying that Microsoft pretty much dropped the ball on backward compatibility.
We stopped talking about Microsoft.
I know, but I have to kind of
minutes ago.
I have to bring it back on topic.
Way to paraphrase.
So our next our last game topic is that was there any game that ever made you destroy a controller or worse?
Oh, hell yes.
What's the last controller you destroyed?
I destroyed a C64
Thank God I
joystick
got
once.
that brick wall over there.
This conversation is definitely a Bakadon conversation.
I destroyed a
destroyed
C64
controllers.
joystick playing Summer Games.
Well,
that's one of the back and forth ones.
I destroyed an Atari 2600 joystick.
That's not hard to do.
No, I think I went through 2 or 3 of those.
Interesting enough, these same sort of joysticks used on a C64.
Yeah,
And on the Master System.
Yeah, same design, probably same company internally speaking.
But
Actually, you could also take the Sega Master System controllers and put them on a C64 and actually use them pretty
Oh, that was the same plug set.
Same
yeah,
plugs.
it was like the 9 plug. Or
Yeah,
the,
9 pin.
9 pin.
So what specific game ever made you want to curse and scream and yell and cry because?
Well, wait a minute. Is that, or are we talking physical destruction of our own property? Or
Well,
other
there's
people's property?
obviously.
Well, one lends itself to the other is what he's
Yeah,
I think he's getting
there's
at.
a line
that's the
there where
game.
you're just like,
Okay.
and then there's the
The
line
actual
that you're like, oh, damn it. And you throw
Well,
it across
Yeah,
he's
the
not
actual
saying your
topic-
girlfriend got on it and wrote it until it broke.
We're not talking about the trance vibrator here. We're talking about, okay, well, let's see. I was playing this game, and oh shit, this sucks. Break controller.
I just got to the boss for the 50th time. He was
Yeah.
down to 1% health, and then I died.
And it was one of those games where it didn't have save points. You had to start all the way over from the motherfucking beginning.
So what? And what game would that be for any of us here?
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. Mainly I wanted to destroy an N64 controller every time I had to use one.
I gotta say that's true for the Sega Master System controller as well.
I
Because
threw my good share of Super Nintendo controllers, just the little D-pads, back when I was playing Street Fighter 2. Trying to get off Zangief's move and trying to learn the Dragon Punch for the first time on that damn controller. I could whip it out on a joystick on the arcade, no problem, but those fucking D-pads, man. I must have broke 2 or 3 of those. But they were hard as hell. I mean, you could throw one of those against the wall 3 or 4 times. You'd
They'd
still
still
use
work.
it, yeah. They were well built.
however, your wall may not work at times.
That's where the brick wall came in.
sharp angle thing there. It's pretty hell on your
Yeah, I had a few
sheetrock.
controllers that were a little like missing a piece of plastic or shaved like they'd been road rashed.
I will admit
or
there
twisted because I grabbed them so hard and went one way or the other.
I will admit there are a few games that I've played that made me like throw controllers in anger. Some of them being because I was being really poor at the game and sucking very much, or it was just bad design in the game, and that has a lot to do with it. But perfect example, Weapon Lord. It was just so hard to pull off just anything in that game, and you thought, oh, what am I doing wrong? And then you realize that the game itself was just really poorly programmed. But, you know, when you're a kid, you don't realize that. You figure, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I must suck.
Rise of the Robots.
Well, that didn't make me want to, like,
No, I
destroy
wanted
a
to destroy
controller.
the actual game.
well, yeah, I can't blame you there. But a lot of the acclaimed games, like, Turok, that was just frustrating.
I don't agree. Turok was a matter of skill. After you learned how to look down before you leapt so you knew where to jump from, it made the game a whole different game.
Oh, man, that reminds me of something that so pissed me off not too long ago.
Ding, 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 ding.
Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth. There's this great segment in the beginning. It's this really well-done thing, except you have to do this jump about 3/4 of the way through it. And one of the things the game doesn't tell you about is when your character gets scared, he doesn't jump as far, move as fast. And one of the things he's frightened of is of heights. So there's this platform bit you have to do the jump on. And, you know, after I screwed up the first time, I revert to standard, you know, FPS jumping. You know, I go and I look down at my feet so I can judge the distance, do the jump just right. Well, except in Call of Cthulhu, your character gets scared looking down over there and doesn't jump as far when you do that.
It reminds me, speaking of jumping, that's got to be the number one pisser. I remember, I think it was Shadow Dancer. You run all the way down to the edge of the dock, and you've got to make that one long jump. I fucked that up must have been a dozen times, and yeah, there went a Genesis controller against the wall. It's like, and those were another indestructible controller.
And here's the thing, it's always like a Shinobi game, and it's always like just that one jump. It's always
they
that
have
one
to
jump.
put that one in there, which is almost impossible to do.
I will say this, water levels. In any Zelda game.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with water levels, but for some reason...
Side-scrolling in Zelda games sucks ass.
Well, that's
Yeah.
only Zelda 2.
Yeah, well, it sucked ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried something new and failed.
Failed. A failure is you.
But they learned from their mistakes, and they moved on to portables.
Although interesting things slightly related to the other topic of hardware games. In one of those levels, in one of the towns in that game, you were walking along and you're going in all stuff, and all of a sudden you see, wow, there's a house and there's a platform way the hell up there. How the hell do I get up there? That's like making the game harder. The game would not be hard as, hey, there's a platform that's off the top of the screen, and I wouldn't know it was there unless the strategy guy told me that I could get to it. That's what the new strategy guides are.
Yeah. Some things are just out of reach.
But, yeah, there's been a few games, mostly on, like, the older 8-bit systems. I think
There's
a large...
some newer ones, too.
Yeah, but I
some
don't
of
think
those ice racing levels and Flat Out.
Back in the day, it was just bad control because they couldn't do much with the actual game.
Oh, that's what Flat Out was, too.
Yeah, but it has a bad driving engine to start with. That game rides alone on the mini games. Yeah, IMO.
Yeah, so we can pretty much safely say, we destroy controllers, I would say half the time just because the game is just really poorly programmed. Hit detection's not right. You go left and you kind of go left, but at a very slow rate.
Well, there may be things that are like completely forgivable for the whole game, except for this one segment where, for whatever reason, they force you into coping with this problem.
And then there's those times when you're just half drunk and you have an urge to play the game, and it pisses you off even easier. But those are few and far between. I digress.
Oh yeah, we never drink and play video games. Heck, we
intentionally.
We hardly ever play video games.
Video games, woo! Say it's something I'm drinking more lately than playing video games. I'm getting old.
Yeah, because you don't have to put a disc to make a drink work.
Yeah, but sometimes popping the top off that bottle's a real bitch.
Throw it in anger.
Now then you drink slivers of glass. But
all right, well, we're going to go into our game reviews now. And I will start with a fighting game for the PS2, MELTY BLOOD Act Cadenza. I don't know what
a couple
cadenza
more words
is.
on the end before it really fleshes
know
out.
what a
No,
MELTY
it's not a Capcom fighting game. It's not like Super Alpha Turbo Hyper for matching service.
So you don't know Cadenza. What about Melty Blood?
Well,
Give us a skinny. Come on, man, break it down.
from what I've read, MELTY BLOOD is basically in the there's a
Use your words, Servo. Use your words.
But what is the blood made of that it melts?
well, what it is.
Buttery goodness.
Well, before I begin
Bloodsicle.
with the actual review, MELTY BLOOD is a series of visual novels that are done by a company called Type Moon. And this is a very popular Japanese company. They've made stuff other than MELTY BLOOD. They've done...
Do they make porn?
Actually, yeah, some of it is very smut-worthy. But
It's not a comic book. It's a graphic novel.
Type Moon sounds Korean.
well, actually, they're a Japanese company, and they've done a lot of just the visual novels, where you see a pretty graphic, you choose what you want to do type stuff. But they've been very popular in Japan, and one of their titles, MELTY BLOOD, was apparently so popular that a Dojin software company decided to make a fighting game for it.
Can you have a Dojin software company?
Well, it's a Dojin group, but
it's a bunch of
This was-
dudes in a garage.
This was one of the reviews that was also with the Milky Punch one. It was on that same article, had this game in it.
Yeah. Well, what happened was that MELTY BLOOD actually started out as a Dojin fighting game on the PC, and the company that made MELTY BLOOD was actually so impressed by it they just said, hey, you know what, just keep doing what you're doing. And they actually went ahead and helped them develop it, and it finally actually became an arcade fighting game.
Yep.
And then once it got into the arcade, they decided, hey, let's do a PlayStation 2 port for it.
Yeah,
and
it
that's
had
how
some
this
popular
came out.
following in the arcade.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, more power to them.
So
The company noticed
grassroots
something
fighting
and,
game.
And ran with it.
And hey, that's completely cool.
And look how well it's selling.
Yeah,
not just in Japan, but abroad.
Yeah, it's selling really well. In fact, NCS said after this shipment, they're probably not going to be able to get any more of them. It's becoming kind of hard to find. But basically, not to go too much into the story because it makes absolutely no sense if you look at the Wikipedia article, people, because it's just really confusing.
Yeah, oh my God, my father has cancer, my robot dog is going on a trip, and
Well,
I must fight you!
Well, it's not.
Desu.
Let's get it on!
It's not
Oh,
like
that's after the fighting.
it's not like that. It's not like a Japanese soap opera,
Desu.
but it is very strongly anime, angsty type influence type stuff.
Oh my God,
That's
you've killed my brother, my sister,
With
my
a
uncle,
cult.
my pet dog,
With the cult.
and so I must get revenge
I think
upon
it's
you.
a Benabashi.
Desu.
Yeah, but basically, story aside, let's talk about the actual fighting game engine. The fighting game
you
engine's
punch
actually, it's actually very good. It's actually about the level of Guilty Gear. It's
a good start.
Yeah, and there's 3 attack buttons. There's a light, medium, and a hard, labeled A, B, and C, and there's actually you can hold back to block, but there's also a special block button that's assigned to the triangle button, and that actually allows you for combos and breaking other people's combos as well. So there's
okay,
actually
counters.
Yeah, it's almost like a counter button. It's really strange how it works. You have a meter on the bottom of your screen, which is just like any other super meter in any fighting game. The catch is that this is done on a percentage. So it starts out as
arbitrary bars ruling performance.
well, actually, not necessarily. Your bar starts out at 50%, and it could actually go up to 299%. And as it and
That's a lot of percent.
well, here's the thing with that is that as your power increases, it allows you to do more moves. So as you defend, it goes up slightly, and as you attack, it kind of goes up slightly. But there's advantages to blocking and advantages to actually being aggressive. And the game is just very well balanced in that respect. So you can't just sit and turtle everything, and you can't just go out and attack, all the time. It's kind of a weird balance, and it's something you kind of have to play around with to kind of get used to it. But as your special bar increases, it allows you to do more enhanced moves, which subtracts from your main percentage. And it's a nice balancing effect because then you can't do a bunch of fierce moves all the time because you have to have a certain percentage of energy to actually use it. So it's a nice way to kind of prevent people from exploiting the same powerful moves over and over again because, these strong moves you can only do a certain amount of times. And you got to build it back up again. It's like having to throw a fierce fireball in Street Fighter, but you have to wait till your bar's at a certain level before you can do it. It's kind of like the Spirit Bar in Art of Fighting. The fighting style is very, it's almost like Darkstalkers in that chaining.
Yeah.
And then you go like light, medium, hard, or you can go from medium, light, whatever. But everything combos. I mean, everything. You can standard attacks combo. You can combo easily into specials, super specials.
It's kind of
you
interesting.
Can
'Cause
interrupt.
It sounds like it gives a degree of fighting ability to anybody that can just
Anyone
anyone
can jump in. It uses standard Street Fighter controller motion, so nothing overly complicated. I mean, there's a few down motions and backward fireball stuff, but if you played Street Fighter, you can pull off these moves without any problem. But the nice thing is that just able to chain, interrupt, do a bunch of juggles. I mean, there's just so much technique to this game.
It definitely lends a lot more to the gameplay. It makes it much more replay value.
And it's like Guilty Gear in the fact that it's just, even though it's a very simple type of fighting engine, there's a lot of depth beneath it. That's the key right there.
It's nice to hear it's got a lot of balance to it. That's such a key in a lot of games.
Yeah.
Go too far one way or the other.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like, from what I've played, there's any real character that has a huge advantage over every other character, because if you noticed in a lot of fighting games, there's always that one character that will have like a huge advantage over every other
You mean
character.
The boss character?
Yeah, and well, I haven't gotten to the boss yet. I'm still working on that part because the computer actually learns. It actually has a pretty good AI, and it learns from what you do and will counteract everything, and it makes you a better fighter, but it does make the game a lot more challenging.
Well, it's good. It forces you to find other ways to beat it.
Does it just start blocking if you use the same move?
No, it'll actually learn and attack and try to anticipate what type of moves you are, so you have to actually kind of think on your feet. And
you got to mix it up.
Yeah, you have to mix it up. You can't do the same shit over and over again. But graphically, it's a very good game. Smooth animation. Background's a little sparse. Nothing much to look at, but you're going to be concentrating so much on fighting, not going to have time to really look at the backgrounds. The music's kind of... Some tracks stand out more than others. Kind of, Guilty Gear type mix. Some of them very memorable. Some of them there was music in the background. That type of stuff. But animation is excellent. Hit detection, as far as a fighting game goes, is superb. I mean, it's along the lines of Street Fighter. I mean, it's that well done.
That's nice.
I mean, just a real solid fighting game. As for a rating, I would give it like a 4 out of 5 because it's just a really solid, good fighting game. Even though you may not know anything about the story or the characters or why you should even care why you're fighting these people, the fact of the matter is it's just a really good, nice fighting game. So highly
clear. This is a just straight up 2D fighting game.
Yes, there are sprites. OMG, WTF, UFIA.
I can see the sprites. I've seen some sprites.
So if you don't like sprites, like our friend John,
oh my God, it's full of
who
sprites.
only plays polygon games that have shiny graphics.
Yeah, that's all I ever play. I totally intentionally limit myself to things based purely on the number of polygons they have.
Hey,
you set goals.
You told me about the tan lines in Dead or Alive Extreme Beach 2.
Hey, if they had sprite boobies, I'd play those games too.
I'm sure there's some shareware out there.
Custer's Revenge.
No. There's your review. You should review that.
So what I want to know is if you're 299% special, does that make you short bus special?
No, actually, the 299 special, there's actually 2 attacks depending on your percentage. There's the blood heat. There's your blood moves, and there's the blood heat moves, which are like super specials. But I've seen some, and I'll have to show you, Brian, some of the super plays of some of the combo super plays on there.
I've seen a lot of air juggling,
Access of, I've seen between 50 and 60 hit combos in this game.
Nice.
So real impressive combos in there.
Combo breaker!
So next we have John that's going to do...
HERZOG ZWEI.
Wait, I have to do my
be speaking German.
I have to do my review first. I'm going to do E.T. Ready?
Okay.
Crap!
One. Hey, did you know there's a number lower than 0?
And at this point, he throws a controller against the wall.
We can just tie all our news bits together.
I remember the commercial for E.T., which I have on my hard drive, and it shows like all these kids, and you see E.T. with his little finger outside the window. It's like, oh, they're gonna get something special for Christmas. And of course, first thing you think is
anal
sex.
Yeah, anal probing.
Where is your gun now?
But no, it's a Atari 2600 with E.T. Oh, bring the magic home for Christmas. Yeah, your kids are gonna be crying. There's your magic for you.
It's a glow stick.
All right, so you're doing.
Just think, if you'd never played a video game before, would E.T. still suck donkey?
Oh yeah. Yeah, people who've never played a video game before would probably know better.
It would keep them from ever playing a video game ever again.
So, John, your review is
HERZOG ZWEI.
Okay.
HERZOG ZWEI is a old strategy role-playing game for the Genesis made by Technosoft.
Is it better than Military Madness?
No.
I don't know if I'd really call it a strategy RPG. It's kind of hard to pigeonhole because it really is at the beginnings of the real-time strategy genre. There's maybe a couple other games you could point at as being the inspiration for it. This is the closest I know of to those mechanics actually being fleshed out in one game. The control scheme was not quite what we'd think of for the standard RTS games, but the mechanics were all there. You'd buy units, you'd use them to capture bases, you would earn money to produce new units based on what you had purchased, fighting over a large map, trying to take out your opponent's base, AI control for the units that you place on the map. Really revolutionary for its time. And to this day, there's been very few games that have used the same control mechanics that it has, which is basically real-time strategy with you playing a particular character in the game. The best comparison could make is games like Uprising and the Battlezone 2.
Oh, yes. Much love for Battlezone 2. Very cool.
So, HERZOG ZWEI has a completely throwaway plot. There's two sides, and you need to fight. There's barely anything more to it than that. You have identical units and basically a palette swap between red and blue, so you know who the bad guys are.
I can see the rocket launcher. Even inside that, yes.
Red versus blue.
So what you would do for this game is you would start out with your home base. This worked exactly the same whether you were playing against the computer or another player. All that meant was whether or not you had split screen or not. And then from your home base, you would be able to use your starting funds, which just gradually increased over time depending on the number of bases you controlled, to buy units. And there was a small variety of units, probably around 10 of them. There was an infantry unit, tank, an APC, a resupply, an anti-air missile launcher, a stationary gun emplacement, one boat.
Helicopter?
Nope.
No.
The only air unit in the game was the one that you yourself controlled.
The Zeppelin.
Your plane, you could fly around, and you would use to go to the bases where you could pick up from any base you controlled a unit that you had purchased, or a unit that was on the ground. And it would turn you into your slower cargo plane form. Then you could haul it to wherever you needed to and drop it down. When you were doing so, this was a really interesting part of the game, is that you could set different orders on your units to get them to do different things. And the orders actually had a monetary cost associated with them. So that's actually one of the things that prevented what we now know to be the rush strategy, is that the attack the enemy home base order was actually really expensive. So you had to get somewhere fairly far along and have enough money built up before you could even launch an attack.
Take
like
over
that.
so many factories or produce so much.
Also
take over so many bases.
Or bases.
Yeah.
Also known as the OMG Zerg Rush strategy.
Yeah, that one.
Zerglings ho!
And so you didn't directly control your units. Instead, you gave them the appropriate order and got them to do the right thing. So, like, if you wanted somebody to just defend a base, you could give them, like, a stationary order. Stay where I put you and shoot anything that comes near.
That probably didn't cost too much, I think.
That was the cheapest.
yeah.
Or you could have even, like, a patrol order where they would, like, wander around and go after enemy units, and when they were done, come back to where they were. Or might be able to say, attack the nearest base from wherever you were. Or there was one that was very important for infantry units that was try and capture the nearest base. Because to capture the bases that were out on the map, you had to get 4 infantry guys into them. But you also had to be aware of what your opponent was doing, because it wasn't yours until you got 4 guys in there. And if you had less than 4 and your opponent came in, they would kill one of your guys to get in there. So you had to get 4 more than the opponent in there, basically, to capture it. But once you've captured it, then the opponent had to get the full 4 in to retake it from you. So then it was easier to defend because you had that buffer. There was a surprising amount of detail to the simulation, which really didn't even show up in many later RTS-style games. For instance, all of the units had fuel and ammo, and they could run out.
That's the resupply, yeah.
So that's the resupply vehicle, or you might have to go over there, pick it up, and hover it over a base so that it could replenish its supplies.
Some would complain that's micromanagement, though.
except it really did add something to the gameplay. I mean, that you could
Well, it probably did to this,
launch
but
a
it wouldn't
concerted
necessarily do it
attack.
to every other RTS.
Like, if your opponent's missile launchers ran out of missiles at a critical point, that would be a turning event in
Foobar.
battle. Yeah. It might be just the edge you needed to get in there and take it out. And maybe if they'd spent a little extra money on a resupply vehicle that kept that going.
So what you do is send like 20 troops against that so that he'd expend all ammo. And
Well, a lot of it, what it came down to, is being very good at managing different points, which was fairly tricky because you actually controlled your unit, and your plane that you were flying around had fuel and ammo of its own as well. So, I mean, you had like a range that you could get out to, and sometimes you would have to do like suicide attacks. Load up a unit on your vehicle, fly it way out there, and it was at the edge of your range, you'd blow up. You'd have to respawn back at your home base and head back out there again. Some really interesting, fun mechanics. There was a lot of strategy and depth that you could get out of by trying to find enough time to look over at your opponent's side of the split screen and see what they were up to, and try and know when they were like flying by this base. You try and memorize what units were there, so you knew what you had to attack. Or
I take it there wasn't any kind of mini map on there you could look at the same time.
There was a mini map so that you could tell where the bases were and where you needed to get to. But it didn't really help you locate enemy units or anything.
Okay.
So you really had to know what was going on the map, where you'd hear like the warning siren, bloop, 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 your home base is under attack. Better fly your ass back there. And to deal with things like that, your ship actually had a third form. You could transform into an infantry dude and shoot ground units, which could be really useful. If there's nothing else that you got to save your ass, you can still hop down there and try and do it yourself, which is why any good attack needed to have some anti-air defenses, because anti-air was basically anti-player, because players were the only air units that were out there. There was a variety of maps for the game, and the AI was remarkably brutal on the high difficulty levels. It really would give you a run for its money and move around and do different things. It definitely fell into some predictable patterns after you'd played it for a while, but it was just so good at throwing stuff at you that even when it got predictable, it was a challenge of skill to keep up with it, to move from place to
still
place.
had to beat the
and make
rush.
it all happen. The music was, after it looped for the 3 millionth time, you really weren't paying attention anymore. It had some pretty good music for being a Genesis title. That's still not going to get it any Grammy awards.
Doesn't matter. Grammys aren't worth anything anyway.
Oh, I don't know. If you melt that statue down, you could probably sell them
Made some spoons out of it.
So I think this game is noteworthy for two reasons. For one, for being there at the birth of the RTS genre and being able to see where it came from.
Not to mention coming on a console.
And having a control mechanic that actually works for that. I mean, every time anybody talks about how bad RTS games are in consoles, I bring up HERZOG ZWEI, because it's an example of how you can make it work. So the other reason that I think HERZOG ZWEI is so interesting is because these mechanics really haven't been copied. And even to this date, it's a unique game that you aren't going to find a similar experience to in many places at all.
Yeah, I think most modern RTSs follow the same generic pattern, and that's just it's an easier blueprint to go by too. And people don't, like I was saying, a lot of people don't like the micromanagement. If you want that, you go to something like Rise of Nations.
Well, it's also a different kind of idea that you have this group of units and you're assigning orders to them rather than giving them specific orders to go here. And it's definitely a different style of doing things and a different way to try and make things happen.
It also sounds like a much simpler version of an RTS too, as opposed to making a mass quantity of 200-300 dudes and then going off to war.
It's definitely a different kind of idea. So it's old, it's classic, but I still think this one deserves a 4 out of 5 as a classic game rating, because it's unique, it was well made. I literally spent years of my life playing this game with my friends. The whole time I owned a Genesis, this was by far the most popular, most played game that I owned.
I think it was very short printed too. It's very hard to find.
Yeah, HERZOG ZWEI is actually a very hard game to find.
And generally, when you do find it, all you find is the game. There's no cover. There's no instructions.
Imagine how annoyed I was when the copy that I'd lent out to a friend disappeared on me.
Ugh.
And it was a decade after that I finally found an affordable copy on eBay to pick up.
Kills.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, John. Last, we have Brian here. And Brian, are you doing a review?
I got nothing.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, that's it for the show, unless someone else has anything else that they want to add.
The show is over, man. It's over.
I got nothing.
Well, I'm going to do the ending bit. but
Desu.
That's not the ending bit.
No.
You
I can juggle too.
You have been listening to Die Hard Gamer Radio. As always, you can listen to us at diehardgamerradio.com, or you can listen to us at podcastalley.com or allpodcasts.com. Join us again, where you'll be listening to four guys who know a lot about games and not much else.